He is an ugly freak. But he has a stunningly beautiful fiancée. But just because his kidneys are not functioning well, his fiancée and her rival, they join forces to break his will. He, who is destitute and on the streets, has to survive by eating garbage. But that couple still won't let him go. Under the charge of rape, framed him and sentenced him to 10 years in prison. The elderly father, dragging his sick body, sold all of their family assets, kneeling on the ground, begging for forgiveness. But by the time he was released and came home, what was seen, however, was a lifeless body. In the decades that followed, he lived like a dog, barely scraping by in the world. In the end, overwhelmed by the burden, he chose to end his life. Little did he know that he would find a blessing in disguise. Accidentally entered the realm of cultivating immortals. In just 500 years, he became the revered Taixuan immortal in the immortal realm. Unfortunately, he failed his tribulation, and suffered a merciless siege from the three great celestial beings. Not only was the wordless heavenly book stolen, he also died by self-destructing. But his life was not meant to end. Surprisingly, he carried a trace of the mysterious energy, and was reborn at the age of 20. In this life, he is determined to erase all humiliation, and return to the immortal realm by killing once more. Li Xiaofan had just gotten into a taxi, when his phone started ringing. It is his fiancée, Wu Qingshuang. As soon as the call connected, there came a series of angry shouts from the other end. A smirk appeared on Li Xiaofan's lips, and he hung up the phone directly. The cold and mocking look in his eyes glimpsed and vanished. But suddenly, an ear-piercing screech of brakes came from ahead. A runaway off-road vehicle came crashing sideways. The taxi driver cursed, desperately gripping the steering wheel. But the collision still occurred. Shards of glass scattered all over the ground. The driver is still in shock. He quickly turned around to check the passenger. But the back seat is empty. Li Xiaofan has long disappeared. And at this moment, the off-road vehicle still didn't stop, swerving and crashing on the road, almost heading towards the cliff. Suddenly, a hand appears, gripping the bumper of the car. This avoided the occurrence of an accident. Everyone present was stunned, because this scene had a strong visual impact. The lonely figure of a young boy exudes a sense of weightlessness. After pulling the cart up, Li Xiaofan was about to leave, but someone called out to him from behind. Old Chu Tianzheng. Thank you, young friend, for helping. Li Xiaofan casually waved his hand. Just a small matter. No need to mind. Chu Tian immediately bows as a gesture of respect. As long as help is needed in Chuzhou, they can be reached at any time. However, Li Xiaofan declines outright. Now, Chu Shuilian is unhappy. Stop. The Chu family is not accustomed to owing favors. Speak. What do you want? Li Xiaofan sneered. You have a lot of energy. I need 100 plants of Panax ginseng. Can you provide them? It seems the atmosphere is not right. Chu Tian quickly steps forward to mediate. Little friend, I don't know how to address you. Li Xiaofan did not answer. Instead, he suddenly gave a mischievous smile. The elderly person, you owe me another favor. As soon as he finished speaking, a fierce gust of wind struck behind them. Suddenly, a black-clad assassin appears. His fists, covered in steel gauntlets, violently slam towards Li Xiaofan's head, just as it is about to hit. Li Xiaofan abruptly turns around. A protective aura surges from his body, causing the opponent's fist to abruptly stop. In an instant, his eyes narrowed. The assassin immediately coughs up a mouthful of phlegm. The body is like a kite with a broken string, crashing into a big tree behind. Chu Tian is extremely shocked, releasing inner energy. Could he be the legendary master? Li Xiaofan didn't pay attention to these. Instead, he looked at the corpse under the tree. He originally came to kill you guys, but he dared to attack me first. He really doesn't know his own limits. To express gratitude, Chu Tianzheng deeply bowed again. And at this very moment, the jade pendant on his neck slipped out. Li Xiaofan's eyes lit up instantly. There lies a faint familiar scent within. Without hesitation, Chu Tian directly takes off the jade pendant, and solemnly hands it to Li Xiaofan. Li Xiaofan left only one sentence. In this way, we can call it even, and turn and leave, disappearing from their sight. Chu Shuilian couldn't help but ask the reason for Grandpa's gift of the jade pendant. Chu Tianzheng suddenly looked serious. Do you know the Fuddy Beast Dragon Tiangang? The #1 expert in the military district, guarding the northwestern border year-round. Single-handedly eliminated over 2,000 enemy soldiers. Chu Shuilian was quite perplexed. Why suddenly bring this up? Chu Tianzheng let out a long sigh. This young man's skills are at least comparable to Long Tiangong. The scene switches to Chu Prefecture's White Swan Hotel. Li Xiaofan, as an intern teacher, came to attend the school party. But just as he entered the banquet hall, he was called from behind by someone. It was his ex-girlfriend from his previous life. Wu Qingshuang furrowed her brows. Her face was filled with impatience. She couldn't even arrive on time for the gathering. What a useless waste. Li Xiaofan responded calmly with a small sigh. I have no interest in this woman who harmed him. I'm not really interested. Wu Qingshuang gave a slight evidence. Li Xiaofan seems to have changed. If in the past, he has already stuck to me like a dog a long time ago, and it's at this moment that my best friend Xu Xiaoying walks over. This guy is your boyfriend? He's way too shabby. Such a poor person. He doesn't even have the face to go out and meet people. Li Xiaofan didn't mind, because in his eyes, these two are simply ants. But Wu Qingshuang still can't stop talking. Coming to such a high-class place, can't they dress decently? It's really embarrassing for me. Xu Xiaoying couldn't bear to watch anymore. She directly pulled Wu Qingshuang away. As she watched their backs, Li Xiaofan smirked. Hey! This kind of attitude turned out to be the same as in the previous life. The banquet started quickly. Everyone happily engaged in conversation. Only Li Xiaofan, sitting in the corner, smoking a cigarette, appearing so out of place. Wu Qingshuang sighed disappointedly. I can't be blamed for this. I can only blame you for not being good enough. Young Xiaokun holds a tall glass in one hand, and pulls her into his arms with the other. What are you still hesitating for? I'll go with you. Confront that poor boy. Upon hearing this, Wu Qingshuang took a deep breath. Her determination gradually grew stronger. Then she walked towards Li Xiaofan along with young Xiaokun. Towards Li Xiaofan. Look at this couple. Li Xiaofan's mouth slightly curves upward. His revenge plan is finally about to begin. Young Xiaokun wears a proud expression on his face. You must be Li Xiaofan. Nice to meet you. Speaking, he also extended his right hand. Li Xiaofan said coldly, You don't deserve it. I only shake hands with friends. When young Xiaokun heard this, he became extremely angry. You should know that he is the deputy director of the education department. No one has dared to be so disrespectful to him yet. Upon seeing this, Wu Qingshuang quickly signaled Li Xiaofan to make a payment. At the same time, mocking voices came from all directions. Yang Xiao is such a distinguished person. How dare you act wild in front of him? If you don't apologize, you can forget about leaving here today. A cold light flashes in Li Xiaofan's eyes, but he sat on the chair without moving. Young Xiaokun thought he was scared stupid, even more reckless. Hurry up and roll back to the countryside. You're simply not worthy of Wu Qingshuang. Just at this moment, Director Ma from the discipline office walked over. Now I command you. Quickly stand up. Give up your seat for Yang Xiao. Li Xiaofan said lightly. This seat. Yang Xiaokun cannot afford to sit here. Yang Xiaokun laughed heartily. Your arrogance is very impressive. I have a stake in this hotel. You poor wretch. Don't you feel cold sitting here? Li Xiaofan quietly on the surface of the seat. After injecting a trace of the Taizun qi, he stood up. Since you insist on sitting, I won't stop you. I hope you don't regret. Young Xiaokun snorted coldly, taking confident strides. He sat directly on the chair, and the chair burned his buttocks. Wu Qingshuang hurriedly came forward to Pat, attempting to help him extinguish the fire. As a result, the fire suddenly spread over and ignited her mini skirt. Fortunately, male colleagues arrived in time to help. They poured a bucket of water down. Finally, the flames on the two individuals were extinguished. However, it was not yet over. Just as Yang Shaokun was thinking, how did the chair catch fire? And the hanging lamp above suddenly fell, with a loud bang, smashing onto his head. Although the problem is not serious, he is, after all, the young master of Wanlu Academy. He still needs to go to the hospital for treatment. With the help of his colleagues, he slowly walked towards his luxury car. Just as I closed the car door, the tire started leaking air. Immediately after, an even more terrifying scene unfolded. With a loud bang, the hood unexpectedly caught fire. Startled, young Shaokun fled in panic. Li Xiaofan calmly watched everything unfold. A slight smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. The best part is yet to come. Let's play slowly. At this moment, Wu Qingshuang walked over. She originally wanted to ask Li Xiaofan to cancel the betrothal tomorrow. But unexpectedly the latter not only refused, he said he would go early. And all of this is for steadfastness in his future moral character. In this lifetime, he will no longer have any regrets. Watching the fading figure of Li Xiaofan, Wu Qingshuang suddenly felt a bit reluctant. She was about to turn back, but was grabbed by Xu Xiaoying. You with that poor boy. We are destined to go our separate ways. Let's go. I will take you to the Emperor Club to change clothes. Meanwhile, Li Xiaofan walks alone on unfamiliar streets. The phone suddenly rang. It displayed an unknown number. He learned from the call that the other party has prepared a meeting point for him, and said they will come to pick him up soon. Li Xiaofan did not refuse. After looking around the surroundings, he gave the other party a location, but after he hung up the phone, he suddenly realized a girl with a black umbrella walking towards us. Hey, bro, do you want to buy some flowers? Silent when encountering Li Xiaofan, she gets closer to his body. Do you want to come to my house and have a seat? Feel the demonic energy in the flower basket. Li Xiaofan's face immediately darkened. I'm afraid you can't afford it. Such a low-level demonic cultivator. How dare you make a move on me? Are you looking for death? The female ghost's identity is exposed. She no longer continues to pretend. She drops the flower basket in her hand, start absorbing Li Xiaofan's yang energy. But in the next instant, the expression suddenly changes drastically. Then, with a thump, kneels down on the ground, feeling as if the body is about to explode. Encountering such a sudden change, she was so scared that she trembled all over. What exactly are you? Li Xiaofan furrowed his brows. Radiant golden light surrounds him, like a heavenly god descending to earth. The immense power of his true self. Can you endure it? Quickly get lost. The female ghost pleads desperately. Just about to leave, a taxi happens to pass by. You little brat, do you have any manners? Actually shouting at beautiful girls. Come, little sister, get in the car. Brother will give you a ride. Without hesitation, the female ghost directly got into the car. The taxi driver stepped on the gas pedal and left this place of right and wrong. Without Li Xiaofan catching up, the female ghost finally breathed a sigh of relief. At this moment, the driver started to talk about immortals. Little sister, are you a flower seller? The female ghost smiled shyly. Do you want to come to my place, little brother? It's in the Manhua alley behind Taixuan. This address sounds familiar to me. But the driver couldn't remember it for a while. Where did he hear it before? The taxi just left, and a Lamborghini arrived. It stopped in front of Li Xiaofan. The person who came is Chu Shuilian. Mr. Li, we meet again. Li Xiaofan smiled and nodded. It's really you. Thank my grandfather for me. Soon, the sports car caught up with the taxi in front. Chu Shuilian casually said, Did that driver offend you? Do you want me to make a call and have someone teach him a lesson? Li Xiaofan waved his hand casually. No worries, just a small ant. Someone is already dealing with him. As expected. As soon as his words fell, he heard the taxi driver scream. Immediately afterwards, the taxi collided with the nearby guardrail. Inside the car at this moment, there is no driver left. Only a female ghost with bloodstains at the corners of her mouth. Seeing this scene, Chu Shuilian was really startled. She quickly asked Li Xiaofan beside her. Who is that girl? Li Xiaofan said lightly, there are many things in this world that ordinary people cannot imagine. The end is near. Lamborghini drove to Emperor Club. Chu Shuilian said she would go and park. Let Li Xiaofan go in first, but he hadn't taken more than 2 steps when he was stopped by the security guard. Hold on, what do you do? Li Xiaofan furrowed his brows. I'm here to stay. The security guard glanced at Li Xiaofan. You, in your shabby stall goods, come here to stay? We only accommodate members. Please leave on your own accord. Soon. The noise here has alarmed the lobby manager. He had a mocking expression on his face. You're just a poor beggar. Coming here to beg for food? Li Xiaofan remains calm. Who are you? Do I know you? So, this person is Xu Xiaoying's partner. We really are fated enemies. You, a poor country bumpkin like you, only deserve to sleep under a bridge. And right at that moment, Xu Xiaoying and Wu Qingshuang walked over. Manager Zhao explained the situation in details and thoroughly. Immediately, Wu Qingshuang's expression changed. Li Xiaofan, you have completely disgraced me. Do you know where this is? Li Xiaofan said lightly, my friend brought me here to stay. She'll be here soon. Wu Qingshuang seemed to hear a joke. How did I not realize before that you are so vain? Isn't it just to get my attention? Coming here to pretend? Li Xiaofan replied. If you don't chase after vanity, how could you be with young Xiaokun? Wu Qingshuang panicked for a moment. After all, she was the one who cheated first. She feels guilty. Li Xiaofan doesn't want to argue anymore. I'm staying here today. Wu Qingshuang laughed anxiously. He. Are you qualified? Then you should stay and see for yourself. As soon as she finished speaking, a beautiful figure appeared. Of course he is qualified to stay. The person who came was Chu Shuilian. When Manager Zhao saw her, he was so scared that his face turned pale. Quickly and eagerly, he went up to greet her. Miss Chu. Why are you here? Chu Shuilian doesn't even look at him. She directly holds onto Li Xiaofan's arm. Why couldn't I come? Mr. Li is a distinguished guest I invited. How dare you be so disrespectful? I only heard a thumping sound. The manager and the security guard immediately kneeled on the ground. Chu Shuilian coldly looked at the two, slapped herself in the face, until Mr. Li is satisfied. Neither of them dared to show any negligence. They immediately started slapping themselves. I'm sorry, we were blind. To witness this scene, Wu Qingshuang was full of confusion. Who is this mysterious woman? Why is your boyfriend so afraid of her? Xu Xiaoying cautiously replied. She is the Chujia Miss. An employee once collided with her esteemed guest, and was forcefully beaten into a vegetative state. Wu Qingshuang's face was filled with complex emotions. She never expected that Li Xiaofan would become a gigolo. Otherwise, with Miss Chu's identity, how could she look at a poor boy? Seeing the two enter the elevator, Wu Qingshuang secretly sneered. Until Miss Chu gets tired of playing. See how you cry. Arriving in the president's box, Wu Qingshuang instinctively released Li Xiaofan's arm, relying on her current strength. How could I be worthy of Li Xiaofan? So she clasped her hands and bowed to him. Mr. Li, I would like to become your disciple. Unexpectedly, she was rejected by the other party, but Chu Shuilian did not give up. Slowly lifting up her skirt, Li Xiaofan's sunlight flickered slightly, although she is quite beautiful. Compared to the women of the fairy realm, still a long way to go. Not worth sacrificing oneself for. So he said in a deep voice, all right, I will accept you as a named disciple. When Li Xiaofan agreed, Chu Shuilian felt extremely happy in her heart. Thank you, master. Li Xiaofan slightly nodded. Teacher. Remember, we are the descendants of the Taizun sect. Chu Shuilian was quite puzzled. Teacher. So where exactly is our sect located? Li Xiaofan stood by the window and looked up at the starry sky, in a very distant place. Wait for one day, when your strength is strong enough, I will take you to see. When he said these words, an enchanting figure appeared in his mind. Shui Shi, I wonder if you are still doing well now. Are you going crazy? Find yourself in the entire universe. Her words seem to echo in my ears. All that Shui Shi has done. Not striving to become stronger than Brother Taizun, just hoping that one day, when Brother Taizun stands at the pinnacle of the universe, I have the qualification to look up to you. Li Xiaofan murmurs. Shui Shi is waiting for me. It won't be long before I return. I will go back to find you. Watching his lonely figure, Chu Shuilian didn't dare to approach, nor did she dare to ask too much, just deeply bowed before leaving. He quietly exited the room. At this moment, Li Xiaofan took out a jade pendant, and crushed it. Inside, there was actually a divine seed hidden, but unfortunately, this seed has already dried up. The Taizun energy in his body simply cannot activate it. After putting the divine seed into his pocket, Li Xiaofan slowly pushes open the door. Those two people are still kneeling on the ground, stroking their own crotches. When they see Li Xiaofan coming out, Manager Zhao hurriedly crawls to his feet. Grandpa Li, please spare me. I know I was wrong. Get lost. He kicks him directly and pushes him away. In the past life, this person was Yang Xiaokun's lackey. He often jeered and persecuted himself. Now falls into his hands. How can I let this grandson off easily? After leaving the hotel, Li Xiaofan originally planned to buy a pack of cigarettes, but suddenly, a car raced past him. I almost crashed into him. Li Xiaofan was very frustrated, but in that instant, he saw a girl urgently hitting the glass. Seems like she is pleading for his help. Quickly, the sedan stopped in a small grove of trees. The man with purple hair turned his head and squinted his eyes. Yang Pyre, don't be afraid. As long as you obediently listen tonight, I will immediately sign the contract. Yang Pyre has been drugged by him, feeling weak and powerless all over. Song Zhang, if you don't let me go soon, I will call the police. Song Zhang licked his lips. Your phone has already been thrown away by me. What can I call the police with? Yang Pyre is anxious and impatient. Tears glistened in her beautiful eyes. She is now both shocked and scared, like a trapped little bunny. Song Zhang has a smug smile on his face. He wants to sign a contract with me. It's not that easy. If you don't put in some effort, why should I sign with you? Finished speaking, he lunged towards the back seat Yang Pyre, continuously tearing her clothes. Yang Pyre desperately struggling, but her limbs had no strength. Only the glistening tears rolled down from the corner of the eye. Right at this moment, someone suddenly knocks on the car window from outside. Song Zhang said fiercely, "What are you doing? Can't you see I'm busy? Get lost if you know what's good for you." Li Xiaofan's expression was very cold. "Get down here." Song Zhang is burning with anger. He walked out with a baseball bat in hand. "Brat. I'll give you a chance, you little rabbit. You can still leave now if you want." Li Xiaofan didn't directly make a move. Instead, he leisurely lit a cigarette. "Nicely let the woman go. I can let you off the hook. Give you a chance to live. Do you know who I am? Even in the entire Chu prefecture, there aren't many people who dare to provoke me." Li Xiaofan said lightly, "I'm not interested in knowing who you are. I'm asking you, are you going to release it or not?" Song Zhang didn't bother to continue the nonsense. He immediately struck with a stick. Oh! Still pretending to be tough. If this stick hits solidly, it's going to give a concussion. But unfortunately, he's facing Li Xiaofan. The latter grabs the baseball bat tightly, gently holds it. Crush a baseball bat right to pieces. Song Zhang was instantly frightened, but he still bravely said, "This society is very complicated. Someone like me, you can't afford to mess with." Li Xiaofan can't be bothered to listen to his ramblings. He simply lifts him up. "You tell me how complicated it is." Song Zhang's legs dangling. "But you still talk tough. You coward. If you have the guts, kill me." "Fine, since you want to die. Then I will fulfill your wish." Li Xiaofan carried him to a cliff not far away. Song Zhang's face was completely frightened, but he dared to conclude, this kid is just acting tough. Definitely won't dare to let go. But unexpectedly, the next second, Li Xiaofan suddenly let go. Song Zong's face is incredulous, but it was too late. Accompanied by a tragic scream, he lost his life directly. Li Xiaofan turned around and left, as if nothing had happened. It's like killing an ant with a pinch. And it is at this moment. Wu Yangpire gets out of the car. But before taking a few steps, she falls to the ground unconscious. Seeing this scene, Li Xiaofan shook his head helplessly. The scene changes. Imperial Deluxe Club. Wu Yangpire, wrapped in a towel, walked out of the bathroom. Sorry. Do you have any clothes? Li Xiaofan turned around, threw a white shirt casually. Wu Yangpire put it on, tied her hair into a ponytail. Thank you for saving me. Li Xiaofan lay on the bed, closed his eyes. You're fine now. You can leave. But Wu Yangpire became nervous. The person who's supposed to pick me up can only come tomorrow, and I'm afraid alone. Can I sleep here tonight? It's up to you. Then he started to sleep soundly. Wu Yangpire lay beside him. Thoughts and desires ran wild. He's such a strange man. But for some reason, I feel so at ease around him. I don't know why. Morning of the second day, Li Xiaofan is on his way to Wu's family to propose. Suddenly received a phone call from Chu Shuilian. According to Chu Tianzheng's intention, he was given Dongfang Star Noble School. Li Xiaofan did not refuse. You should know, he, as the distinguished Xuanshan Immortal Lord, doesn't even bother with a mere school. It's not worth his attention at all. Soon, he arrived at the residential area where the Wu family is located, Longhu Bay. At this time, Wu Qingshuang is standing together with her mother. In a little while, she will confront that poor boy. Cut to the chase. Did you hear clearly? There was a hint of hesitation in Wu Qingshuang's eyes, but she still agreed. Li Xiaofan, since you are willing to be a little self-respecting person, then don't blame me for being heartless and ungrateful. The two were originally waiting downstairs to welcome Yang Xiaokun, but unexpectedly, they first met Li Xiaofan. When Wu Ma saw him, her face was full of contempt. A cold grunt came out from her nostrils. Without any intention of chiming in, Wu Qingshuang frowned. Didn't you see my mother? Why didn't you even say hello? Li Xiaofan lit a cigarette and sighed. Hello, aunt. Then he walked to the flower bed next to him and sat down. He smoked by himself. Wu Ma turned her head and asked, Li Xiaofan, how much money do you earn each month now? Wu Qingshuang answered hurriedly, he is still an intern teacher. The salary is only around 2,000. Aunt Wu frowned and disdainfully said, just this amount of money? Where do you get the courage to propose? Li Xiaofan helplessly shook his head. Money is just a hand's reach away for me. But that's not why I'm here this time. Before he could finish speaking, Wu Qingshuang interrupted. Isn't it just because you're poor? That's why I became a small self-face. I'm really disappointed in you. Aunt Wu is getting impatient. Quick, make him leave. Xiao Kun will be here soon. Don't disturb you guys on a date. Just at this moment, a black Bentley came driving by. The person who came was Yang Xiaokun. Just because he is the director of the discipline office, I feel like a superior person, dealing with difficult internship teachers everywhere. Li Xiaofan sneered. But now, I am the principal of Dongfang Jixing School. Upon hearing this, Yang Xiaokun burst out laughing. You're really good at boasting. Why not say you're the mayor or the governor? Wu Ma, Mother Wu, also rolled her eyes on the side. Daughter, quickly distance yourself from this kind of person. It's really embarrassing. After saying that, she smiled and held on to Yang Xiaokun. Don't pay attention to this poor boy from the countryside. Go back home, aunt will cook for you. But Yang Xiaokun suggests, let her and Wu Qingshuang go test drive the car, while he talks alone with Li Xiaofan. Wu Ma readily agrees, pulling her daughter to leave this place first. After the two left, Yang Xiaokun totally exposed his true nature. Li Xiaofan, you kneel down and kowtow 100 times now. Maybe I'm in a good mood. I can kill you easily. Li Xiaofan frowned. With one hand, he lifted him up. Are you tired of living? Witnessing this scene, Yang Xiaokun's henchmen were quite surprised. How come this kid is so strong? Young Shaokun shouted anxiously. What are you waiting for? Kill him for me. The thugs finally regained their senses. They rushed forward aggressively. But Li Xiaofan stood his ground. His gaze only slightly hardened, as his body emitted a protective aura, keeping the two apart. Unable to move forward even a bit. No wonder you are so powerful. I didn't expect you to be a cultivator. Li Xiaofan sneered. You two bastards actually understand a little about cultivation. After saying that, they directly throw young Shaokun to the ground. Without waiting for the reaction of the black-clothed henchman, Li Xiaofan has appeared behind. Only heard a crack, mixed with a miserable scream. The henchman's arm is completely disabled. Seeing this scene, the other thug couldn't sit still. He swung a heavy punch directly. But before he could touch Li Xiaofan, he was thrown out dozens of meters away by an invisible force. Seeing Li Xiaofan approaching step by step, he couldn't stop trembling all over. But so what? Li Xiaofan hesitated not, and directly grabbed him by the waist. Then he shook off the bloodstains on his hand, and looked at young Shaokun with a cold expression. The latter was completely panicked. If you dare to touch me, I will make you eat prison food for the rest of your life, Li Xiaofan said in a cold voice. Kneel down now. Kowtow to me 100 times. And then imitate a dog barking 100 times. Young Shaokun gnashed his teeth. Can't even say a word out of anger. Li Xiaofan can't wait for him. Directly stomps on one of the thug's legs. Seeing this bloody scene, young Shaokun is truly relieved. I will kowtow immediately. Please, don't hurt me. And during the test drive, Wu's mother warns Wu Qingshuang once again not to have any contact with Li Xiaofan in the future, because in her eyes, young Shaokun, who sent the car, is much stronger than Li Xiaofan by more than millions of times. But when the two returned, they saw such a scene. Li Xiaofan urged, hurry up, only 50 have been knocked. Young Master Yang is already tired? Wu Qingshuang quickly ran off the car. Looks at Li Xiaofan incredulously. What have you done? Why would Shaokun? Li Xiaofan interrupts and says, I haven't done anything. These are all voluntary actions by Mr. Yang. While saying that, he fiercely slapped a few big mouths. By the way, we still need 100 dog barks. Just let everyone see what you really look like. Wu Qingshuang, listen carefully. There should be a limit to insulting others. Quickly apologized to Shaokun. Li Xiaofan sneered. He, apologize? When you were arrogant and domineering. Did you ever think about apologizing to me? After speaking, he heavily kicked. He trampled young Shaokun to the ground. Hurry up and call for me. Although young Shaokun was extremely unwilling in his heart, but at this moment, there is nothing they can do. They can only let out barking sounds. The next morning, Li Xiaofan takes a taxi and arrives at the Oriental Star Noble School. But at that moment, his phone suddenly rings. The incoming call on the screen turns out to be his father. Hearing my father's voice after a long time, tears couldn't stop rolling down Li Xiaofan's face. After I finish dealing with things here, I will pick you up in Chuzhou. After saying this, he immediately hung up the phone. He was weak in his past life, and in the end, he was forced to jump off a cliff and commit suicide. The one who suffered the most was his father. In this life, he is determined to make up for it all. The scene changes. They arrive at the school office. Director Ma from the disciplinary office informs them, however, that there are no vacancies for the internship teacher position. Instead, he tells them to manage the warehouse. Li Xiaofan frowned as soon as he heard it. You're privatizing the faculty like this? With the new principal's approval? Director Ma said. How dare you talk back? The candidate for the new principal this time must be Yang Shaokun, Yang Xiao. After saying that, he threw the warehouse key over and advised Li Xiaofan to kowtow and apologize. Only by doing this can he keep the position of the administrator. And it was at this moment that someone suddenly pushed open the door. It was none other than Li Xiaofan's good friend from a past life, and the school's physical education teacher, Chao Fei. Upon seeing Li Xiaofan, he enthusiastically greeted them and approached. Upon seeing this, Director Ma stood up and shouted angrily, "Who let you in? Be careful, I'll deduct half of your salary." Upon hearing these words, Li Xiaofan can't tolerate it anymore. He's about to explode, but he is stopped by Chao Fei. A hero doesn't suffer losses. Let's talk outside. In the corridor, Chao Fei asked about his relationship with Wu Qingshuang. Li Xiaofan replied directly, "She hooked up with Yang Xiaokun. I'm really curious about how you, a double master's degree holder, ended up teaching physical education." Chao Fei sighed helplessly. Because he touched the interests of Yang Xiaokun and Director Ma, resulting in the current situation. Then he scratched his head. "But I have already accepted it. When my mother's illness improves, I will resign from here." Li Xiaofan patted his shoulder. "No need to worry. I am the principal of this school. I am appointing you as the vice principal now. You don't have to endure anymore." Upon hearing these words, Chao Fei thought he was joking and didn't take it seriously. Then he leaned on Li Xiaofan's shoulder and went to tidy up the warehouse with him. Meanwhile, on the other side, two henchmen of Yang Xiaokun are kneeling at the entrance of Zhenhai Mansion, bitterly recounting Li Xiaofan's evil deeds. The man in the appearance of a Taoist priest, after hearing, his voice carries a hint of displeasure. "According to what you said, this person's cultivation is pretty good, but I can't tell what sect he belongs to. Have you mentioned my name? Exaggerate and add fuel to the fire, you henchman. That kid said you're nothing but snake dog shit. Even if you came, I would still kick your ass." Once he said these words, the Taoist completely entered a state of rage. "Damn! Don't you dare disrespect me, Benjen. Go investigate his whereabouts. And when Benjen shows up, chop him into 3 pieces." Screen transitions. Tianlong Hotel. Chu Shuilian asks Chu Tianzheng if he wants to hold a ceremony for Li Xiaofan. Chu Tianzheng nods slightly. He calls all the teachers to Tianlong Club. Announcement of the new principal. Chu Shuilian responded with a nod. Just as she was about to turn around to make arrangements, she was suddenly stopped by Chu Tianzheng. "In a few days, Lei Yuntian is about to return from the military. What is your opinion of him?" Chu Shuilian responded without hesitation. He is Long Tiangang's disciple. At such a young age, he is already a young colonel. He is an excellent person. Upon hearing this, Chu Tianzheng instantly became excited. "What about your marriage? You know that he has liked you since childhood." This time he came back precisely for this matter. Chu Shuilian shakes her head repeatedly. "Although Lei Yuntian is excellent, he is not the person I like. When he comes back, I will make it clear to him." Chu Tianzheng inwardly sighs. If Long Tiangang personally speaks, this marriage proposal would probably be hard to refuse. And at this time Li Xiaofan is leisurely strolling around the school with Chao Fei. But suddenly, both of their phones rang at the same time. As shown on the text message, it is indeed the announcement of the new principal. Soon, everyone gathered at the entrance. Everyone praised Yang Xiaokun. It seems that it has been determined that he is the new candidate for principal. Just at this moment, Li Xiaofan and Chao Fei walked over, and Yang Xiaokun thought to himself, "When I become the principal, watch how I'll play you to death." However, Li Xiaofan couldn't be bothered with him. He chose to ignore both of them directly. Wu Qingshuang immediately frowned. "Stop right there." Li Xiaofan turned around casually. "What's up?" Wu Qingshuang angrily roared. "Xiao Kun is about to become the new principal. You should quickly apologize to him now. Otherwise, she hasn't finished speaking yet." And Li Xiaofan interrupted her. "Perhaps there is no one in this world who can understand my Tao." Wu Qingshuang is instantly speechless. "Can't you stop pretending? You come from a poor mountain village and become a teacher here. Don't you think about your own future?" Li Xiaofan waved his hand. "My future is not something an ant like you can imagine. It's you who should take care of yourself." He finished speaking and pushed the door to go in first. Seeing him behaving so arrogantly, Director Ma felt some regret. If only he had known earlier, he should have just let him go clean the restroom. In the reception room, Chow Fei, while eating, complains to Li Xiaofan. I really don't understand what the board of directors is thinking. They actually took a liking to this hypocritical young Xiaokun. Suddenly, a female waitress bursts through the door, continuously shouting for help. Right after that, a scarred man follows in pursuit. Ungrateful thing. You want to run when you're in my hands. There's nowhere to run, the waitress cries out. Teacher Shu, save me, they want to force me. Shu Xiaoying said with determination. What are you going to do? If you dare to do anything else, I will call the police. Upon hearing this, Scarface laughed. Alarm. Why don't you give it a try? This girl is pretty good too. Take her away. Hearing these words, young Xiaokun frowns and turns his head, just about to curse out loud. But after seeing the appearance of the person, his expression changes drastically. It turns out to be Brother Ji Ba. Take a deep breath. This is all a misunderstanding. Ji Ba became impatient after hearing this. Who are you? Young Xiaokun felt a little embarrassed. I am from the Young family in Zaicheng. I have had the privilege of meeting Brother Ji Ba a few times. As soon as these words were spoken, the crowd started discussing eagerly. Is he the emperor of the underground boxing? I heard that anyone who dares to provoke him will disappear within 3 days, and their bodies will be found in the sewer. Upon hearing this, Shu Xiaoying became panic-stricken. Young Xiao, what should we do now? Young Xiaokun looked at Ji Ba pleadingly. What exactly happened? What made you so angry? Ji Ba pointed at the waitress and said, I told her to accompany me for drinks, but she injured my subordinate. Is she bullying me because I, Ji Ba, have a good temper? Young Xiaokun responded repeatedly. Yes, 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 you're right. Then he looked at the female waiter. Are you Shu Xiaoying's student? Quickly greet Brother Ji Ba. Compensate for the medical expenses of his subordinates, the waitress said with a grievance. I'm just working here. They forced me to come. Shu Xiaoying interrupted. Enuo, isn't it just accompanying with a drink? How could you hurt someone? At this moment, Jiba suddenly spoke. There's no need to apologize. Go back and continue drinking with me. Upon hearing this, young Xiaokun hurriedly urged. Okay. You immediately go back with Brother Ji Ba. Later, I'll come as the principal. I'll exempt your tuition for this semester. Shu Xiaoying also advised from the side. Ji Badge and Young Xiao are taking care of you like this, because they think highly of you. Listen to the teacher's words. Let's go with Brother Ji Ba. Don't wait for Anno to speak. A hand suddenly grabs her arm and pulls her directly outward. It's the subordinate of Ji Ba. You think you can escape after catching the eye of Bajie? Dream on. But in the next second, someone stopped you. Your name is Ji Ba, right? You harassed my student. And not only did you not apologize, but you also followed her here to insult her. This thing today. You're gonna have to give me a statement. Hearing this, young Xiaokun became anxious. Have you been kicked by a donkey? If you want to die, don't drag everyone down. As soon as these words were spoken, the onlookers started criticizing one after another. Ignorant country bumpkin. Kneel down and apologize to Brother Ba. Ji Ba disdainfully looks at Li Xiaofan. Since you've stepped forward, then I'll start with you first. After speaking, he gestured to his little followers behind him. Gaga. They directly launched a frontal attack towards Li Xiaofan. Chow Fei anxiously shouted from the side. Xiaofan, be careful. But in the next second, Li Xiaofan directly slapped both of them and sent them flying out. Collapsed on the ground and unconscious. Seeing this scene, Ji Ba instead becomes excited. No wonder he dares to act so arrogantly. Turns out he's a martial arts expert. Ah Lang, go up there and show him some colors. After responding, Ah Lang strikes like lightning. Aerial 360-degree spin and flying kick, pressuring Li Xiaofan's head directly, but the latter only raised his hand lightly and easily grabbed his leg. Then, taking advantage of inertia, forcefully gathers strength suddenly. As a loud sound, Wolf was heavily smashed to the ground, crawling for half a day without getting up. At this moment, the whole scene was as silent as death. But Ji Ba's heart trembled even more. You should know, Wolf has worked as a mercenary in the Middle East. He has fought and seen bloodshed. Yet he couldn't even withstand Li Xiaofan's move. Can't hold it anymore. Li Xiaofan sneers. Hegemon, do I have the right to make a statement? Ji-Ba snorts. I admit you have some skills. Then I'll give you an explanation. As soon as he finished speaking, he waved his hand. Several dozen men in suits immediately stormed in with weapons, surrounded Li Xiaofan in the middle. Seeing this scene, the onlookers hurriedly moved aside, afraid of accidentally getting hurt. At this time, Ji-Ba urged, "What are you still standing there for? Cut this kid into pieces for me." Upon hearing the command, all the followers rushed forward, seeming to want to chop Li Xiaofan into minced meat, but he neither dodges nor evades. He even leisurely lit a cigarette. The next second, his body suddenly burst with protective righteousness, sending all the little Gurgur flying away, scattered on the ground like dumplings. Li Xiaofan shook his head in disappointment. And pathetic. Witnessing this scene, everyone present was dumbfounded. Everyone thought they were seeing things. Ji-Ba was so scared that he collapsed on the ground. Unbelievably, he watched all of this. At this moment, Li Xiaofan slowly walked over and stepped on his shoulder. Ji-Ba couldn't help swallowing his saliva. Although you have subdued me, I am not convinced. Li Xiaofan's face darkened at his words. What does it have to do with me? I just need to disable you. But Ji-Ba still refuses to give up. If you have the guts, let me make a call for assistance. A hint of mockery flashes at the corner of Li Xiaofan's mouth. Sure. I want to see who you can bring. Ji-Ba stood in a small corner, carefully making a phone call. After carefully making the call, he immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Kid, the person I brought is undoubtedly the big boss in Chuzhou. Even in their eyes, I am. Those are all scum. He delusionally wants to recruit the heavenly lord of the immortal realm as his little brother. Li Xiaofan sneered. Want to be my big brother? You're not qualified. Ji-Ba blushed at these words. He has been in the industry for over 10 years. Never have I seen such an arrogant young man. And it was at this moment that the private room door opened. A group of people hastily entered. The leader was a young woman. She had a picturesque appearance. It was Chu Shuilian. Ji-Ba's eyes suddenly lit up. Hastily rushed over. Miss, you're finally here. It's this guy, daring to act recklessly on my territory. Chu Shuilian sees that it's Li Xiaofan, completely ignores Ji-Ba, walks quickly towards Li Xiaofan, bows slightly in greeting. Teacher, I didn't expect it to be you. Seeing this scene, everyone present is stunned. Li Xiaofan smiled lightly, pointed a finger at Ji-Ba. Not only did he harass my students, he even claimed to be my big brother. Upon hearing this, Chu Shuilian raised her arched eyebrows. She walked slowly towards Ji-Ba. Just based on you, this dog, you also dare to be the older brother who teaches me. Ji-Ba was so scared that he fell to his knees. It's all because of my lack of insight. I won't dare anymore in the future. Chu Shuilian angrily shouts, slaps. Ji-Ba doesn't say a word, just directly starts fighting, whips out his own big saber. His subordinates saw this, and immediately knelt down on the ground. They collectively slapped their crotches. In private room, there was a burst of crisp cracking sounds. Chu Shuilian turned around and said to Li Xiaofan, Teacher, if there are any inconvenient matters in the future, you can let Ji-Ba handle them. What the other party said is not unreasonable. He cannot personally take care of everything. When he thought of this, Li Xiaofan nodded and agreed. Chu Shuilian only left behind a sentence. Remember, you must obey the teacher's arrangements from now on. Go away. Then released Ji-Ba. He left with his subordinates. At this time, young Xiaokun walked over. Miss Chu, today, the announcement for the new school principal will be made. If you have time, you might as well join us as a witness. Ms. Chu Shuilian helplessly shrugged her shoulders. Don't you know who the new principal is? Or should I say, don't you know who the biggest school director is? Director Ma quickly answered. That's definitely our young Xiao. And Miss Chu, I would like to remind you that Li Xiaofan is just a warehouse manager. You don't have to show him such respect. Listen to this.
Chu Shuilian wanted to speak up on the spot,
but unexpectedly
was intercepted by Li Xiaofan.
Director Ma, you have been diligent at school for 20 years. This chair has also been sat on for long enough. Principal Ma asks, rubbing his chin. What do you mean? Li Xiaofan said calmly. The meaning is that you've been fired. You can leave. Director Ma laughed furiously. Just because you're an intern. You think you can dismiss me? What a yawning hysteric frog. Quite a burst of energy. Before he could finish speaking, Li Xiaofan made a rude retort. He took a puff and exhaled. Director Ma covered half of his face. Glaring with anger and shame, he said, Do you dare to hit me?
With a sound of a slap.
Another damn troublemaker. Li Xiaofan said in a cold voice. What did I do to deserve your beating? Principal Ma was so angry that his whole body trembled. Madman. You are simply. As soon as he finished speaking, Li Xiaofan swung his fists from side to side in a frenzy. Director Ma's face swelled and became shiny, like a pig's head. If there weren't so many people present. Such scum. Li Xiaofan would have killed them long ago. But right at this moment, Chu Tianzheng and Yang Xiaokun's father, he hurriedly walked in. Director Ma saw Chairman Yang. It was like a drowning person, grasping a life-saving straw, and falling to the ground, crawling and crying out loud. Director Yang, you must ensure justice for me. Upon hearing this, Director Yang said in a deep voice, Don't get agitated right now. Let me introduce myself first. This is the school's biggest trustee. But he didn't finish his sentence. He was directly ignored by Chu Tianzheng. The latter walked up to Li Xiaofan. He bowed as a gesture of respect. Mr. Li, I'm really sorry for letting these bugs bother you. Li Xiaofan casually waved his hand. It's nothing. Immediately. Then I heard Chu Tian loudly announce. The candidate for the next principal of the school is Mr. Li Xiaofan. Yang Xiaokun looked at his father in confusion, wondering if it was a mistake. Principal said it was supposed to be me. Director Yang interrupted and said, The Chu family is influential now. We can't afford to offend them. At this moment, Chu Tianzheng spoke again. Not only that, I will also give away all my shares. From now on, the school will belong to Mr. Li. Once this statement is made, everyone present can testify. Director Ma's heart was shaken. It's over. Even Wu Qingxuang couldn't help but have doubts in her heart. Did I really misjudge it? Chu Tianzheng asked cautiously. Mr. Li, do you have anything else to confess? Li Xiaofan is just as he said before. Appoint Chao Fei as the vice principal, and take over Director Ma's position. Seeing this heartwarming scene, Yang's father's face is full of a sinister color. He has already made contact with the Ni family in Zhangbei. Their family head was once killed by Chu Tianzheng. This time, the Ni family has invited a great master. By then, they can collaborate inside and outside, and surely eliminate the Chu family in one fell swoop. Watching Li Xiaofan's back, Yang Xiaokun said angrily, At that time, I will make you kneel before me and be tortured by 1,000 cuts. And in the corridor, Chu Shuilian said to Li Xiaofan, Teacher, there's an auction tomorrow night. Do you want to go take a look? Li Xiaofan is not interested, and shakes his head in response. I won't go. But Chu Shuilian says again, the previous auction. Someone has also auctioned off magical artifacts. Upon hearing this, Li Xiaofan's expression slightly changed. It seems that on Earth, it's not as simple as you think. There are still many secrets. So he nodded and agreed. I'll go take a look then. The scene changes. The two of them arrive at a villa. This is the wealthy district of Chuzhou. It's very quiet and suitable for a teacher. Just stay here. Li Xiaofan nodded slightly. The spiritual energy here is abundant. I really like it. Chu Shuilian touched her hair gently. I won't bother the teacher then. But Li Xiaofan said, Come in with me. Don't go back tonight. With these words said, Chu Shuilian blushed instantly. Does he want it? The next morning, Li Xiaofan sat cross-legged on the ground, and let Chu Shuilian sit down too. The latter didn't even hesitate, and took off her high heels, and sat opposite Li Xiaofan, only to hear a loud noise. Li Xiaofan's momentum suddenly surged, forming a powerful formation on the ground.
I will gather the spiritual energy within a radius of 100 miles.
To unlock my cultivation,
Stay here and cultivate with me.
upon hearing this, Chu Shuilian inexplicably felt a hint of disappointment. It turned out that she had misunderstood, only to see Li Xiaofan forming hand seals.
You have joined my school of Taizun. Although only as a registered disciple,
You are qualified to learn our techniques.
today, I will teach you the most advanced qi cultivation technique, dragon drinking technique.
As his words fell, Chu Shuilian was shocked by the scene before her. She jumped in fright. Because above Li Xiaofan's head, a huge dragon shadow appeared surprisingly. Li Xiaofan secretly thought in his heart, the most important thing now is to quickly restore the cultivation of previous lives, and then traverse the other side of the starry sky, to seek out past enemies.
Looking at the scene before her, Chu Shuilian was a bit stunned.
What kind of magical technique is this, that can actually, with such a dense gathering of spiritual energy, feeling every pore of my body, seems to have opened up, as if bathing in spiritual energy. Li Xiaofan reminded, don't get distracted. I will only demonstrate the dragon drinking formula once. How much you comprehend depends on your fate. Upon hearing these words, Chu Shuilian snapped back to reality. She no longer dared to delay even a moment. Watching Li Xiaofan's movements,
Chu Shuilian is learning with skill.
after a moment, she enters a state of bliss. Li Xiaofan is greatly pleased, though Chu Shuilian cannot compare to a genius, but on Earth, it can also be considered rare to see. Now this girl's spiritual energy is surging, which is a sign of breaking through to a higher level.
The path of cultivating immortality is divided into cultivation, precelestial, foundation establishment,
Nascent soul, soul transformation, void core, tribulation ascension. In his past life, Li Xiaofan was in the tribulation ascension stage, known as a Great Immortal. However, currently, the Earth lacks spiritual energy to cultivate and cross the starry sky. It is unknown how many years it will take. Therefore, he must exhaust all means to enhance his cultivation. Just at this moment, as Li Xiaofan had expected,
Chu Shuilian successfully broke through to the qi cultivation early stage.
Chu Shuilian quickly bowed to express gratitude. As a token of appreciation,
Li Xiaofan handed over a note,
asking him to purchase the items written on it, because he planned to set up a large formation and rely on the remaining Taizun qi within his body
to quickly improve his cultivation. Chu Shuilian dared not delay for a moment.
After taking the note, she left the villa.
Li Xiaofan, who was idle,
Was planning to visit the school, but she ran into Wu Qingshuang and Xu Xiaoying head-on.
He couldn't even be bothered to look at the two of them.
He just passed by them directly. Wu Qingshuang felt ignored, immediately turned around and cursed.
Li Xiaofan,
Stop right there. Li Xiaofan turned his head and said calmly, What's the matter? Wu Qingshuang complained incessantly. Stop pretending to be confused with me here. We haven't broken up yet. Why didn't you say hello to me? And my mother said, if you can treat school as a dowry, she will reconsider our marriage. Upon hearing this, Li Xiaofan burst out laughing. You think you're worthy? Upon hearing these words, Wu Qingshuang was first stunned by anger, then she had a face full of mockery. I understand now. You must have licked your way into this school. Wait until Miss Chu is not happy one day. Then she will take it back. Otherwise, with your family background, how could such a big change happen?
Li Xiaofan was speechless for a moment.
He just muttered the next sentence to himself. Think however you want. And then he turned and left this place. But he hadn't taken 2 steps yet, when suddenly Aunt Wu's mother called. Do you have time tonight? Come to our house, Auntie will cook for you. Actually, you can still negotiate with Qing Shuang, but for that noble school, you have to hand it over to Auntie first. Li Xiaofan cursed directly. I'll screw your uncle. And then he hung up the phone. Such a superficial and treacherous person, he's not even worthy of talking to. Watching Li Xiaofan's figure, Xu Xiaoying disdainfully said,
Just him, a country bumpkin.
In this prestigious school. Definitely can't stay any longer. Wu Qingshuang is a bit puzzled. But after all, he's the principal now. This place is his territory now.
Shu Xiaoying sneered.
From what I know, Yang Xiaobao has secretly contacted a group of influential people's children. They want to drive Li Xiaofan out of the school. Let's go and see what's happening. The school's playground at this time.
Chao Fei is taking the students to physical education class.
Suddenly, a blonde kid walks over. I heard our school got a new principal.
You also became the vice principal, but I think
you can't even manage our class. You're simply not worthy to be a PE teacher, let alone a vice principal. Chao Fei's face immediately turned ugly. Young Zemo,
currently in physical education class,
don't cause trouble. Young Zemo arrogantly spoke. Dare to compete with me? If you win, I will admit your position in school. Hearing this, Chao Fei became angry. Hurry back to class. You're still a student. You should listen to the teacher. Yang Zemo's mouth curved with a hint of mockery. Teacher Chao, are you afraid of admitting defeat? Seeing Chao Fei remain silent, he also lost interest. If that's the case, you are not qualified to be a teacher at all.
Go away from this school.
Along with your principal brother. It was at this moment Li Xiaofan suddenly appeared. So what should I do to qualify as your physical education teacher? Young Zemo glanced up and down at him. Are you the new principal? To be qualified as our teacher. It's simple. Defeat me.
Li Xiaofan sneered.
Just you alone. Are you even worthy of me taking action? You are like an ant. Ridiculous and laughable. Young Zemo became furious upon hearing the words. How dare you look down on me? If you have the guts, let's compete now. Let's see who's more powerful. Li Xiaofan raised an eyebrow. We can compete. But what if you lose? Young Zemo angrily laughs. How could I possibly lose? If I lose, I'll obediently go back to class. But if you lose, you must leave the school. Chao Fei advised by the side. He is a renowned student athlete. No one has broken the school record until now. It has even achieved a ranking in the province. However, after Li Xiaofan heard it, he just casually waved his hand. Believe me. But he didn't know. Wu Qingshuang and Shu Xiaoying also arrived at the scene, quietly waiting to watch a good show. Just now, gifted student Yang Zemo challenged Immortal Lord Tang Pai. I want to compete with him. The first event is javelin throwing. You should know, Young Zemo is only 2 meters away from breaking the National University student record. What do you see? Li Xiaofan is certain to lose. Quickly, Young Zemo takes the javelin and stands at the starting line. The referee loudly announces, Young Zemo's throwing result. 75.4 meters. The entire field exclaims in surprise. No one expected him to break his own record. The future is boundless. At this moment, Li Xiaofan stepped forward, but he stood directly at the starting line. Chao Fei reminded him on the side. You need a running start for the bid spear. Otherwise, how could it be thrown far? Li Xiaofan said lightly. No matter. If I have a running start. That's like bullying him. As soon as these words were spoken, a mocking voice arose from the surroundings. Truly too arrogant. I think he's been scared silly. These days, he's already broken through all the bullshit. Young Zemo coldly snorted. What's the use of pretending? But before his words even finished, the referee announced the result. 105 meters. The onlookers were surprised. How is this possible? The world record is only 95 meters. Has he broken the world record? Wu Qingshuang's heart trembled fiercely. Why is Li Xiaofan's performance always so unexpected? Li Xiaofan said with a smiling face. How about that? Do you surrender? Yang Zemo angrily replied. I don't surrender. Let's compete in shot put again. This project, he originally planned to showcase it during the sports meeting and make a stunning debut, but in order to defeat Li Xiaofan, he had no choice but to reveal his strength ahead of time. He positioned himself in a standard posture and threw the shot put in his hand. The whole audience erupted in applause. Yang Xiao is indeed amazing.
The world record is 23 meters. And Yang Zimo can throw 21.
Li Xiaofan cannot possibly beat him. Yang Zimo claps his hands, smugly says, "It's your turn, teacher." Li Xiaofan calmly said, "Go get me a ball that is twice as heavy as his." As soon as he finished speaking, causing mocking in the entire audience again. Can this guy stop pretending like this? Let's see how he embarrasses himself later. Soon, a boy holds a shot put in both hands. Because it was too heavy, he was exhausted, panting heavily and covered in sweat.
But Li Xiaofan casually
just grabbed him. Even gently tossed it in his hand. Then, when they saw this scene, the entire audience fell silent in an instant, all the mockery and noise from before. It all stops here. Yang Zimo's face was full of surprise. There are actually people in this world who can throw the shot put so far. Is this still a human? Li Xiaofan turned around gently and smiled. What do you think? Do you submit? Yang Zimo clenched his teeth. I don't submit. If you have the guts, let's compare taekwondo skills again. If you can beat me this time, I'll respect you. Scene changes.
School Taekwondo Gymnasium.
After Yang Zimo wears the protective equipment, he starts to taunt with words again. Taekwondo is the project I excel at the most. I was just afraid of injuring you before. It's not too late for you to regret now. Li Xiaofan shook his head disdainfully. The mediocre martial arts of a small country. You dare to show off and embarrass yourself. Open your eyes and see clearly.
The teacher will teach you.
What is the true national martial art? Without waiting for Yang Zimo to react, Li Xiaofan has already darted out. His right fist fell, accurately hitting Yang Zimo's abdomen. The latter immediately flew out like a broken kite, and heavily fell to the ground. Yang Zimo looks completely confused. What exactly just happened? Seeing this scene, the onlookers all exclaim in surprise. This is Tai Chi push hands, the true Chinese martial arts. After this series of moves, the students are all fans of Li Xiaofan. However, Li Xiaofan doesn't care. He walks up to Yang Zimo. How about it? What else do you have to say now? Yang Zimo sincerely said, Teacher Li, this time I completely surrender. I keep my promises. Starting today, we will behave well and attend classes. Li Xiaofan nodded. This is how a student should be. Before leaving, Yang Zimo seems to remember something. Hesitated for a moment, but ultimately told Li Xiaofan, Teacher, you need to be careful. These are all Yang Xiaokun and Su Minghao. Ordered by me to do it. Li Xiaofan coldly snorted. It's Yang Xiaokun again. Go inform that Su Minghao. Tell him to come for class tomorrow. Otherwise, he will bear the consequences. Yang Zimo swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Su Minghao is the leader of the school. You can't afford to mess with him. I advise you to forget about it. A hint of ridicule flashed in Li Xiaofan's eyes. The school doesn't even revolve around a student like him. To dominate and rule. Notify him according to what I said. Yang Zimo sighed. In the end, he nodded and agreed. On the stands, Wu Qingshuang shook her head. I think we may never be able to deal with Li Xiaofan. I don't know why. I feel the gap between us and him is getting bigger and bigger. In the end, all we could do was look up to him. Xu Xiaoying's face turned green with anger. He's simply useless. Yang Xiao actually found a group of useless people to deal with Li Xiaofan. The screen switches. Ji Ba brings a truckload of goods. Arriving at Li Xiaofan's villa gate. The materials you both asked for. I had someone search the entire Chuzhou overnight. Almost ready now. Just one last thing missing. It's called the Descending Dragon Wood. I've tried all sources, but still can't find it. Wu Qingshuang frowned immediately. How can he handle things like this? Won't he look for it in other provinces? Li Xiaofan waved his hand to interrupt. It's not his fault. Dragon subduing fork is buried underground. It takes tens of thousands of years to form. It is indeed difficult for ordinary people to find. Wu Jinmu. Wu Qingshuang seemed to think of something. Teacher, do you still remember the auction I mentioned? If I remember correctly, it is one of the items up for auction this time. Li Xiaofan thought to himself. It seems like this trip is necessary. 2 days later, he arrived at the auction site as agreed, but did not see Chu Shuilian. Only Jiba has been waiting here for a long time. From his mouth, I learned.
Chu Shuilian was urgently called back home,
but transferred 100 million in cash to Li Xiaofan's account. Li Xiaofan slightly nodded upon hearing the words. If anything happens to Chu Shuilian, remember to find me. Ji Ba hurriedly bowed and saluted. With your words, Miss Chu can finally relax.
Stepping into the grand hall of the auction,
by now, it's already crowded with people.
But Li Xiaofan unexpectedly sees several familiar figures standing there.
That day, when I pushed you off the cliff. That guy who ruined your good fortune. Have you found him yet? As soon as I hear this, Song Zhang becomes furious. If I encounter him again, I will throw him to feed the turtles. Just at this moment, Wu Qingshuang noticed Li Xiaofan. She tugged on Yang Xiaokun's clothes.
Look,
Li Xiaofan is here too. Song Zhang also turns his head upon hearing the sound, following Wu Qingshuang's gaze. How annoying. So this kid was hiding here. No wonder I couldn't find him in Chuzhou. I've searched everywhere. Yang Xiaokun was quite surprised after hearing this. He didn't expect him to be with Song Zhang, to unexpectedly have the same enemy.
Song Zhang approached with a cane, slowly walking towards Li Xiaofan.
You bastard, do you still remember me? Tell me, how do you want to die today? Li Xiaofan said lightly. Turns out I didn't kill you last time. Do you want to die again? Song Zhang raised his crutch, just wanted to beat him up. But he was stopped by Yang Xiaokun, the host of this auction. Is the mysterious and low-key Ouyang family. Should we kick this kid out and teach him a lesson? Song Zhang's corner of the mouth slightly lifted upon hearing this. Makes sense. First, let him get out of here. Then, cripple him. Yang Xiaokun questioned Li Xiaofan. How did you manage to get into such a high-class auction? Li Xiaofan nonchalantly replied. I was invited by someone. Really? How? Any objections? Yang Xiaokun couldn't help but laugh softly. Who would invite a country bumpkin? This isn't a nightclub, you know. It's not just anyone. Anyone can come in. Wu Qingshuang's face is full of disdain. Is it even worth asking? It must be Miss Chu. To find a country bumpkin like this as a lover, it feels disgusting just thinking about it. Song Zhang couldn't be bothered to continue talking nonsense. He directly spoke in a commanding tone. He said to the lobby manager, What have you guys been up to, Manager Shu? Let this country bumpkin move freely. The guests here are all extremely esteemed. If this kid bumps into someone, who will bear the responsibility? Manager Shu dares not offend these two. Helplessly, he waved his hand. Someone, come. Immediately, 4 martial artists at the initial stage of qi cultivation appeared, surrounding Li Xiaofan. Manager Shu shouted loudly. Get out of here quickly. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. Li Xiaofan said calmly. I have an invitation card. Do not believe it, you can go and check. Manager Shu, on the other hand, continues to pressurize. Get the hell out of here soon. How were you raised by your parents? Does a garbage like you deserve to be in this kind of occasion? As soon as he finished speaking, Li Xiaofan counterattacked with a fierce blow. You shouldn't curse in front of me. Especially insulting my parents. Manager Shu angrily looked at the thug. What are you all standing around for? Chop him up together for me. Upon seeing this scene, Yang Xiaokun and others begin to take pleasure in the misfortune. This kid is going to be unlucky. This is the territory of the Ouyang family. Causing trouble here is simply seeking death. The 4 thugs simultaneously shouted out. Attack! Facing a sneak attack from behind by 4 people. Li Xiaofan, however, stood still in place. It was at this moment that a girl's voice suddenly came over. What are you guys doing? The person who came was Ouyang Pyre. A layer of frost covered the delicate face. Manager Shu quickly went up to greet. Hello, General Wu Yang. This country bumpkin dared to cause trouble here. And he even hit me. But please rest assured, Chairman. I will immediately arrange for someone to beat up this guy with a stick. Before he even finishes speaking, Wu Yang Peierwin is a big jerk face. What are you? How dare you be so rude to my honored guest? After saying that, she quickly walked towards Li Xiaofan. Since the day you saved me, I have been unable to contact you. I didn't expect to meet you here. That's really great. Without waiting for Li Xiaofan to speak, Song Zhongqi said proudly, You're just a distant relative of the Wu Yang family. How dare you meddle in my affairs? Wu Yang Peier replied, If you don't want to be kicked out by me, then behave yourself. And also, about that night, I will seek an explanation sooner or later. Song Zhongbei, speechless, can only curse in my heart. What's so great about you? One day, I will get you. At this moment, Wu Yang Peier asked Li Xiaofan, Mr. Li, how should we handle this ignorant dog-like thing? Immediately, Li Xiaofan stepped forward.
The manager's legs were broken at the ankles. The crisp sound of bones breaking
made everyone present shudder in fear. Let's go. The auction is about to begin. Having said that,
Wu Yang Peier held onto Li Xiaofan.
Judging by their appearance, they look like an intimate couple. Seeing this scene, Wu Qingxuang's face turned pale. She couldn't understand. What does Li Xiaofan have that attracts Wu Yang Peier? Yang Xiaokun's face doesn't look good either. Wherever this guy goes, there are beautiful women helping him, and they're all more beautiful than Wu Qingxuang. It's just at this moment,
the sound of footsteps suddenly comes in.
Halt. Then the crowd of onlookers quickly avoids. As if fearing a fierce tiger, like a flock of sheep, a young man in military uniform comes with a murderous aura.
Recognizing the person,
Young Xiaokun immediately becomes excited. It's actually young Master Chu. Now there's a good show to watch. The young man in front is named Chu Shifeng. At the age of 18, he volunteered to serve in the army. At such a young age, he became a captain. And he is also a reserve member of the Azure Dragon Special Forces Brigade. He is said to be the top Special Forces soldier in the country. It's not an exaggeration. Among the young generation in Chuzhou, apart from Lei Yuntian, the great young master of thunder, there is only Chu Shifeng and Song Zhang, among others. That's to be expected. What's even more important is that he has been pursuing Wu Yang Peier for a long time. That's his forbidden zone. Other men dare not touch. He will definitely be beaten half to death. Li Xiaofan deserves his misfortune. This time he is mooching off others. He finally bumped into trouble. Wu Yang Peier's face changed. Hastily protected Li Xiaofan. Chu Shifeng, what are you trying to do? Chu Shifeng coldly smirked. In Chuzhou, daring to compete with me, Chu Shifeng, for a woman, you truly are tired of living. Wu Yang Peier angrily said, Watch your mouth when you speak to me. What do you mean, your woman? I have nothing to do with you. Chu Shifeng said firmly. Not now. But there will definitely be in the future. Get out of my way. After finishing speaking, he pulled Wu Yang Pei aside and pointed at Li Xiaofan's nose. I don't care who you are. I don't care what background you have. Get the hell out of here, you jerk. Otherwise, I'll break your spine. Chu Shifeng is arrogant and domineering, in front of everyone, showing no face at all to Li Xiaofan. Wu Yang Peier is afraid Li Xiaofan will suffer, reaching out to grab Chu Shifeng. What are you doing?
He is my friend. Although Li Xiaofan is stronger.
When it comes to martial arts skills, Chu Shifeng is a special forces member. How could Li Xiaofan possibly win? So she hurriedly advised Li Xiaofan, You are no match for him. Quickly leave. Otherwise, you will suffer a great loss. However, Li Xiaofan stood still. Who do you think you are? How dare you speak to me like this? Chu Shifeng immediately roared. Do you know who you are talking to? Li Xiaofan said calmly. This sentence. I said it to you, it's about right. With your existence like this, you simply don't deserve to speak to me. Chu Shifeng is just a powder keg. Ignited immediately.
Furious instantly.
Bastard. You're seeking death. About to strike after speaking.
Suddenly, from behind him,
Comes a burst of crisp laughter. Stop it. Everyone turns to look back. And there stands Chu Shuilian. Zhaofeng, how dare you show disrespect to your teacher? Apologize immediately.
Chu Shifeng paused and asked,
Cousin, why did you come? Chu Shuilian asked angrily. If I didn't come, would you still have a chance to stand here and talk? After scolding Chu Shifeng,
Chu Shuilian looks at Li Xiaofan.
Teacher, I arrived late. There was some family matter. Consider it for my sake. Can you spare him? As he spoke, he also bowed. Li Xiaofan said lightly,
There should never be a next time.
Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. As soon as he heard these words, Chu Shifeng immediately got angry. Fuck. What are you boasting about? I don't need you. He hasn't finished speaking. Chu Shuilian goes up and makes a big fuss. Chu Shifeng, I'm telling you to apologize to the teacher immediately. Don't say it was you. Even if it's grandpa meeting the teacher, they should still be respectful. What are you even? Everyone in Chu Shifeng was dumbfounded.
They stood there for a while without saying a word. Chu Shuilian then immediately made a vulgar gesture,
demanding an apology right away.
Chu Shifeng felt both wronged and angry.
His chest seemed like an air pump, continuously rising and falling. But in the end, he still apologized to Li Xiaofan. I'm sorry. He finished speaking. He walked away without looking back. But when passing by Li Xiaofan, he started mumbling in a low voice.
You little rascal.
Today, I'll spare you for now. Stay away from Ouyang Pyre. Otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Li Xiaofan sneered disdainfully. No matter how talented this guy is, that's just an ant. I can easily kill it with a slap. Chu Shuilian gives a respectful bow and says, Thank you, Teacher Gao Shigui. Li Xiaofan casually shakes his head. No problem. Then he turned around and was about to go inside, but Chu Shuilian called out to him. Teacher, wait a moment. After Chu Shuilian finished speaking, she came to Wu Qingshuang's side. You're Wu Qingshuang? Seeing the opponent's strong aura, Wu Qingshuang immediately lowered her head. Yes, Miss Chu. As a result, as soon as she finished speaking, Chu Shuilian swung her hand and slapped her hard. Wu Qingshuang immediately let out a tragic scream.
My body fell heavily to the ground. The ambiguous things you said behind my back.
Don't think I don't know. Women like you, who are only interested in personal gain, don't even deserve to be a teacher's girlfriend. Later, don't let me see you again. Get lost. Wu Qingshuang desperately pleaded with her eyes.
Looking at Yang Xiaokun.
Yang Xiaokun had no choice but to step forward with a determined look. Miss Chu. She is my girlfriend. I kindly ask you to spare her this once. Please let her go.
Chu Shuilian, Leng Ting, speak up.
In front of me. You dare to claim face? Get lost. Young Xiaokun was scolded mercilessly. But I still want to stay here. Miss Chu. My father is. Chu Shuilian interrupted and said, Didn't you hear? I told you to get lost. Young Xiaokun was embarrassed and angry again. He wished he could find a place to hide. But in the end, he could only support Wu Qingshuang and leave with mixed feelings.
Chu Shuilian glanced at Ouyang Pyre with a grudge.
Ouyang girl. I'm sorry. I arbitrarily drove away the guest you invited. Ouyang Pyre lightly smiled. They were inessential to begin with. Sister helped me drive them away. Things will be quieter for me now. After this turmoil, the auction scene returns to tranquility. Li Xiaofan, supported by two younger girls, walked towards the inner court. Soon, the auction officially began. The first item up for auction was a bronze bowl. Looks rusty and worn. I bet no one would want it if it was thrown on the street. But Li Xiaofan became interested, because he saw something on the bowl. Kong na bo meng sheng. Note, this sentence is incomplete and needs further context. Sensing a familiar scent. It is the aura of the phoenix's power.
Although this aura is very weak,
it is enough to awaken the dormant seed. But just at this moment, the host on stage suddenly spoke. Ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, I want to make a statement here. The origin of this bronze bowl is unknown.
Many antique appraisal experts have examined it. Hard to distinguish real from imitation.
I can't guarantee that it's real either. The starting price is 1 million. A mysterious man approached Song Zhang. As long as you can bid for this item for me, I will personally kill Li Xiaofan. Just at this moment, Li Xiaofan raised his number plate.
I bid 110.
Many wealthy businessmen turned around,
looking at the person who made the bid.
After the initial shock, there is an undisguised mockery and disdain. However, in another private room, Song Zhang
directly raised the bid to 5 million.
At the same time, he coldly snorted in his heart, Li Xiaofan, I will never let you
easily obtain anything.
But Li Xiaofan remained calm. Once again, opening the mouth is 10 million. Obviously, it is meant to intimidate the opponent with this, to make the other party aware of the difficulty and retreat. But Song Zhang is not an easy opponent either. Both sides are bidding against each other, refusing to give in. The competition was extremely intense, until the end. Li Xiaofan shouted 7 million. The host started the countdown. 7 million for the first time. 70 million, second time. Hearing this, the mysterious man became uneasy. He hurriedly patted Song Zhang's shoulder. But Song Zhang raised his hand to indicate, later, we will kill Li Xiaofan. This bronze bowl, Meng, is still yours. Just at this moment, the host makes the final decision. Deal. Song Zhang couldn't help but snort coldly. Let's play slowly. I will make sure today you lose everything. Wu Yangpei looked at Li Xiaofan with worry. This thing is really not worth the money.
Or let me help you arrange. Chu Shuilian interrupted and said,
Wu Yang girl, don't worry. The teacher definitely has her own plans. And furthermore, if there's not enough money, I can cover for the teacher. Wu Yangpei quickly waved her hand. After all, this is on my turf. How can I let my sister pay? I'll pay later. However, Chu Shuilian still refuses to back down. As a student, it's proper to offer something to the teacher. It's only natural. Wu Yang, just stop arguing. As the two were fighting over who would pay,
Li Xiaofan suddenly spoke up.
I appreciate your kind intentions, but I already have enough money on hand. Very quickly,
the second item was picked up.
It's exactly the material Li Xiaofan is missing, Wujin wood, because it is rare and has many effects. The starting bid has changed to 6 million. Li Xiaofan doesn't hesitate. He directly lifts up his number plate. 1 billion. Upon hearing this, the whole room starts whispering. Why is it him again? Does he really have nowhere else to spend his money? But then again, I heard an even more horrifying number. 2 billion. The person speaking is none other than Song Zhang. Damn it. Li Xiaofan, I will raise the price to kill you. But Li Xiaofan has an indifferent expression.
Even when the host started counting down,
they just closed their eyes and stopped bidding. At this moment, Song Zhang panicked. He looked at Li Xiaofan with a puzzled face. The same goes for Chu Shuilian. Our main goal this time. Isn't it just Wu Jinmu? If it's because of money. As for me, she hasn't finished speaking yet. Just then, Li Xiaofan interrupted. Don't worry, I have my own arrangements. And it was at this moment that the host finally made a final decision. After the auction ended, the three of them walked out of the hotel simultaneously, in order to quickly activate the Chaos Stone, replenishing the depleted Taizun Qi. After a simple farewell with the two, Li Xiaofan,
carrying the bronze basin, left alone,
and returned to his own villa. As soon as Li Xiaofan opened the door, he saw a familiar figure. I actually wanted to come find you. I didn't expect you to come to me. Seems like you have a pretty high level of determination. Sitting on the couch in the living room is none other than Song Zhang. There are several bodyguards behind. You made me waste 2 billion for nothing. To buy this rotten piece of wood. If you're smart, hand over the 2 billion quickly, then bring me the bronze bowl Meng. I will give you a satisfying experience. Otherwise, I will settle all scores, new and old. I won't let you beg for life or seek death. Li Xiaofan leisurely lights a cigarette. Hee. Coincidentally, I also have a word to say to you, since you've come.
Today, right here.
All vanish into thin air. Song Zhong full of disdain.
Toasts not honored will be punished.
I really don't know. Where does your confidence come from? Right at this moment. A mysterious man stepped forward. You must be Li Xiaofan, right? Do you still remember back then? An assassin to assassinate Chu Tianzheng? Li Xiaofan, insignificant, just a small-time thug, not worth remembering. Upon hearing this, the mysterious man became furious. That is my younger brother. Now I will take your head, to pay tribute to his spirit in heaven. After saying that, he suddenly jumped up. Like an arrow, he shot towards Li Xiaofan, incredibly fast. In his eyes, Li Xiaofan is just an ordinary person, but in the next second, he was smacked by a big slapper. Get slapped out directly. Hee. That's all you've got? You dare to come here and stir things up? The mysterious man looks confused. Could he be a master? This is impossible. He does not believe in superstitions. He clenches his fist and charges forward again. Li Xiaofan still doesn't dodge or evade. With a gentle lift of his hand, he blocks his opponent's full force strike. Then he coldly chuckles. Still want to resist? As soon as the words fell, he suddenly exerted force with his hand, and the mysterious man let out a scream,
instantly dropping to his knees on the ground,
his body trembling uncontrollably. I was wrong. Please let me off the hook. Li Xiaofan's face immediately darkened. No problem. Although I said that.
But he lifted it up with one hand,
followed by a punch from his right fist,
piercing through the body of the mysterious man.
You dare to offend me, the honorable immortal Taizun, and still expect to survive? So naive.
Seeing this scene,
Song Zhong was scared and continuously stepped back. How is this possible? After calming down a bit, he quickly ordered his henchmen. Attack all of them for me. Kill him. Li Xiaofan shook his head in disappointment. What a pity. I've given you a chance.
The thugs didn't bother to waste words.
They immediately pulled out their guns and started shooting, watching the bullets coming at high speed. Li Xiaofan remained calm and composed. At the moment he extinguished the cigarette butt, a light screen suddenly appeared around him. It blocked all the bullets. Then, several bursts of true energy were suddenly shot out, accurately hitting this group of thugs with tremendous impact force, smashing them heavily against the wall. Now only Song Zhong remains.
Li Xiaofan is like the god of death, slowly approaching him.
Song Zhong trembled with fear, continuously crying and shouting, "Don't come closer, what exactly are you?"
He picked up the gun from the ground again,
and shot wildly at Li Xiaofan. But it was still useless.
Li Xiaofan said coldly,
"You are not worthy of knowing my name." As the voice falls, the bullet immediately changes direction. Li Xiaofan gently taps his hand. With a whoosh, it directly pierces Song Zhong's forehead. However, Li Xiaofan didn't even glance at him. He directly picked up the fallen dragonwood on the ground. Now, he can finally activate the gathering spirit formation. Nightfall. Li Xiaofan is setting up a formation in the courtyard. The descending dragon wood is suspended in midair. Based on its aura, he speculates that there must have been changes on Earth. That's what caused the current thinning of spiritual energy. So, he used dragon descending wood as the foundation of the formation,
using the villa as the focal point of the gathering formation,
with the entire school as the center. Then, from the Chu Prefecture Mountains, the range of the enchantment expands. Not only the entire Chu Prefecture, but also the majority of the spiritual energy in Zhongnan, will slowly be absorbed by him. Li Xiaofan's figure flickered,
arriving above the gathering spirit array.
It's just a pity. The gemstone Chu Shuilian found for him is not what he wanted. Still too ordinary. Currently unable to set up a more advanced formation. Can only temporarily let this place a spiritually abundant paradise. Even so, if an ordinary person lives here, they can also increase their lifespan and live an easy life up to 150 years. This is the function of a blessed land. Even in the cultivation world, not every sect can have one. After finishing, Li Xiaofan teleports back to the villa. Open the door. He gently snapped his fingers. The corpse on the ground instantly ignited, slowly evaporating. Next, he should activate the Chaos Jade.
Li Xiaofan sat cross-legged.
In front of him was a bronze bowl. He took out a dried seed and placed it into the bronze bowl. Close your eyes immediately.
The energy of Tu profound circulates through your body, accompanied by a roaring sound.
The bronze bowl begins to vibrate continuously. Gradually, a radiance starts to bloom forth. Li Xiaofan suddenly opens his eyes wide. Faintly, you can see a phoenix appearing. But who knows who it is, sealing the power of this thread of the phoenix. Unfortunately, it has been too long. The breath has become very weak. But it is more than enough
to stimulate the seed.
Li Xiaofan sat cross-legged on the bed. Insert this seed into the chest.
Quickly, golden lights burst out from his body,
lowering his head, appearing godlike. Before long, his aura became much stronger. The vital energy within his body seems to have an inexhaustible source. What is even more surprising is, this is still a seed that comes with the ability to see through the heavens.
Li Xiaofan smiled slightly
and successfully cultivated the supreme immortal eyes. In this way, you don't have to go through the same hardships as in your past life to diligently cultivate in the realm of immortals. It is effortless
to effortlessly gain this divine power.
In order to test your abilities,
Li Xiaofan looked towards Bomo Meng and saw.
Suddenly, countless flames erupted from within. Originally, this is not just the spirit of a phoenix, but the true soul of the phoenix. Li Xiaofan quickly pinched his fingers in a hand seal. Since that's the case, then you shall be the spirit of the gathering spirit formation. As his words fell, dozens of true qi suddenly erupted inside the body, tightly binding the fire phoenix. But the latter seems unwilling, continuously flapping its wings in struggle.
Seeing this scene,
Li Xiaofan furrowed his brow. He raised his hand and shouted loudly, "Submit to me." An invisible hand descended from the sky and firmly pressed the phoenix onto the ground. Under the effect of the Taizun qi, its body slowly starts to shrink. Then, it flaps its wings and flies out of the window. Li Xiaofan starts to draw a biscuit for it. Now, be a good spirit and serve me. Absorb the spiritual energy from all directions to aid my cultivation. In the future, I will break through the immortal realm, and I will take you along to ascend.
The phoenix actually understood,
nodded like a person. Go ahead. Myself does not restrict your freedom,
but can only move around the Chuzhou Mountains.
The phoenix perches on the descending dragon wood. Both a dragon and a phoenix are spiritual formations. My gathering spirit formation finally came alive. This is the formation I've been dreaming of. At this moment, in the night sky of Chu Prefecture, suddenly, a fiery phoenix appears. It attracted countless citizens to rush to take photos. They thought that the Chuzhou Mountains had manifested. A deity descended to earth. Meanwhile, Li Xiaofan sat at home. Once again, he used the supreme celestial eye. But what I saw this time was an assassin breaking into the Chu residence, attempting to assassinate Chu Tianzheng. Li Xiaofan thought to himself, indeed, the Chu family is facing a crisis, and it was at this moment
that the sound of hurried footsteps could be heard, and the person approaching was Chu Shuilian.
The disciple pays respects to the teacher. Before she had a chance to explain what had happened, Li Xiaofan slowly stood up. Let's go. Chu Shuilian blinked in surprise, just as she was about to say something. Li Xiaofan picked up his coat and said casually, your Chu family also helped me a lot. Now that you're in trouble, it's only right for me to lend a hand. After saying that, Li Xiaofan puts on his coat. He took the lead and walked out.
Watching his figure, Chu Shuilian's heart was filled with surprises.
The teacher always surprises me. He actually knew my intentions in advance. On the way to the Chu family,
Chu Shuilian introduced to Li Xiaofan
the long-standing conflict between the Chu and Ni families. So, the Ni family from the north and the Chu family have always been at odds. The business conflicts keep escalating. There was a time when the Ni family attacked the Chu family's goods. The younger brother of the Ni family's patriarch was killed on the spot. The feud between the two families became even more intense. The Ni family has made several attempts to assassinate Chu Tianzheng. The first encounter with Li Xiaofan
also happened to be the person sent by the Ni family.
Several years later, someone from the other side has mastered a set of skills and returned to seek revenge against Chu Tianzheng. This time,
although the Chu family has deployed elite security forces,
they simply cannot stop him. Even bullets cannot harm him. If it weren't for a large number of armed police arriving, I'm afraid Chu Tianzheng has already died. Finally, both sides agreed
to have a decisive battle today.
Chu Tianzheng knows he's no match for that person. That's why he let Chu Shuilian invite Li Xiaofan to join us. Scene shifts. Chu family. As soon as Li Xiaofan entered the door, he saw Chu Tianzheng had been waiting here for a long time. Mr. Li, you finally arrived. Please come inside. After this matter is successful, my Chu family will definitely express our gratitude. Time for the duel.
Set at 11 o'clock noon. On the Fengyang Tower by the seaside.
Upon hearing this, Li Xiaofan simply nodded. There wasn't much more to say.
Chu Tian continued.
Let Snow Lotus accompany you first. I'll go prepare now. I'll leave immediately afterwards. After speaking, he walked upstairs. In a short while, Chu Shifeng came over. Cousin, I heard that kid Li Xiaofan has come to our house. What does it have to do with our Chu family? Why do we have to ask him for help? Just invite my master instead. What problem can't be solved? I can see this kid is just a swindler for money and women.
Chu Shuilian's eyebrows furrowed instantly.
Mr. Li is an esteemed guest of the Chu family. Do not be disrespectful. As soon as Chu Shifeng heard this, he became even more angry. He walked angrily towards Li Xiaofan. This time, his master was present. Even if his cousin tried to stop him,
we must expose this fraudster.
I will duel with you. Whoever loses must leave Chuzhou. How about that? Do you have the guts? Li Xiaofan said coldly. I will only give you one chance. Take your hands off.
Chu Shifeng leaned his whole face closer.
I'm counting on you. What can you do? If you dare, bite me.
Chu Shuilian saw the situation.
Hurry up and go pull your younger cousin. Shifeng, do you know you're looking for death? Hurry up and apologize to the teacher. Chu Shifeng pushes Chu Shuilian away. It's useless for anyone to stop me. With my master present, my Chu family will definitely be safe. Today, I must teach this kid a lesson. Dare to compete with me for a woman. Really tired of living. Chu Shuilian still wants to step forward, but Li Xiaofan reaches out to stop her. That's fine. Today I will let you know what kind of existence I am.
Chu Shifeng was so angry that he laughed.
Bah!
Just a country bumpkin.
He's going crazy. As soon as he finished speaking, Li Xiaofan immediately gave a heavy slap back. Chu Shifeng became furious and shouted loudly. Oh my god, do you dare to hit me, fucker? He rushed towards Li Xiaofan while saying those words, but before he could reach him, Li Xiaofan suddenly threw a powerful punch. This blow was even more brutal.
Chu Shifeng was knocked backwards
and crashed into the wall behind him. He got up from the ground like a bullet shot from a gun, clenched his fists and charged towards Li Xiaofan again. Watching the fist coming towards him, a coldness flashed in Li Xiaofan's eyes. He also threw a punch at the opponent. The fists of both sides collided in midair.
Hearing a cracking sound, the sound of bones breaking,
Chu Shifeng couldn't help but scream and fell to the ground.
Chu Shuilian quickly pleaded, asking the teacher to show mercy.
For the sake of my reputation, please spare his life. Chu Shifeng smiled and said, You brat. If you have the ability, then kill me. My master will avenge me. Upon hearing these words, Li Xiaofan's face turned serious. He slowly stood up.
And then, there were two cracking sounds.
His legs were then crushed. Chu Shifeng screamed in agony. But the next second, his two arms were kicked off. Consider it a favor for your sister. I will only sever your limbs, letting you live like a dog. You should be grateful that you have a good older sister.
Chu Shuilian hurriedly went forward to check
and shouted to his subordinates,
Quickly send the young master to the hospital. Hearing the commotion, Chu Tianzheng hurriedly ran over. looking at Chu Shifeng on the stretcher.
He let out a deep sigh. Then he bowed respectfully to Li Xiaofan. "Thank you, Mr. Li, for sparing my grandson. My grandson is naturally impulsive. I hope you can forgive him." Without waiting for Li Xiaofan to speak, one subordinate suddenly ran over. Whispering a few words in Chu Tianzheng's ear, the latter immediately frowned. "How did Li Shijun come? I didn't notify him." Chu Shuiling said without hesitation. "Is that even a question? It must be Shifeng who told him." Upon hearing this, Chu Tian angrily cursed a word. "This useless thing."
Chu Shuilian reminded Li Xiaofan.
"Teacher, you should be careful of Li Shijun. He is known as the #1 master in Chuzhou. Many people want to become his disciple. But he rarely takes on disciples. Before, Shifeng wanted to become his apprentice, so his grandfather personally visited him and gave him a villa as a gift. Only then did the other reluctantly agree, accepted him as a formal disciple." Just at that moment, an angry scolding voice from outside entered the room. "Master Chu, what's going on, Shifeng?"
Chu Tian turned his head to take a look.
His face immediately changed dramatically.
"The person who came is Li Shijun.
"What happened?
Look at the attitude of old Master Chu.
He doesn't welcome me, does he?"
Chu Tianzheng smiled apologetically and said,
Not at all, not at all. Brother Li is welcome to come to my place. That's to give me face.
Please, have a seat."
Li Shijun is also not polite. Dama Jindao sat down immediately. Coincidentally, Li Xiaofan was sitting face to face.
"Could it be that this person
is the one who crippled my disciple?" He hasn't finished speaking yet, and the thug already recognized Li Xiaofan. "It's such a narrow road for enemies. It was this guy who injured us and Yang Xiaokun, this young man." Li Shijun's brow furrowed instantly. "First, he injured my brother. And now he has crippled my disciple. If you know what's good for you, disable your limbs immediately. Then kneel down and bow to apologize. Otherwise, I won't let you walk out of this door. That's all." Crushing the teacup with one hand. In his eyes, Li Xiaofan is just an ordinary person. If his disciple and brother were disabled, it must be due to underestimating the enemy. If we don't retrieve this scene, how will he continue to survive in Chuzhou in the future? How will his martial arts school still operate? Who will seek him out as a master to learn from? Li Xiaofan remains unmoved. Put down the teacup. Chu Shifeng continuously provokes me. It would be too lenient to just disable him. If it weren't for the sake of the Chu family, I would have killed him long ago. You came running over and questioned me. Do you have the right to do so? Li Shijun became extremely angry upon hearing this. He rushed forward ready to fight. How dare you? What do you think you are? Chu Tianzheng realized that the situation was not good. He hurriedly stepped forward to intervene. Master Li, please refrain from acting rashly. Listen to this old man's words. I'm sure you've heard that my enemy has come knocking at my door.
Mr. Li is the assistant I hired.
No matter what, you must do me this favor. Li Shijun glares at Li Xiaofan. All right, since Uncle Chu has spoken, I will give you this face and help you defeat your enemy. I'm going to settle the score with this kid. Based on this ant alone, Sheng also wants to help you fend off enemies. I've had enough of this life. How about this? Well, I am also Master Shifeng. I'll help you settle this matter. Chu Tian's face showed signs of difficulty. Bai Jing, he has already entrusted the matter to Li Xiaofan. Li Shijun saw his hesitation, immediately expressed dissatisfaction. What's wrong? Could it be that I, the #1 expert in Chuzhou, am still no match for this ant-like person?